Vatican City created, Pope becomes ruler of a state again, by Arnaldo Cortesi, June 7, 1929. Rome, June 7. From 11 o'clock this morning, there was another sovereign independent state in the world. At that time, Premier Mussolini, as Italian foreign minister representing King Victor Emmanuel, the first Italian premier ever to cross the threshold of the Vatican, exchanged with Cardinal Gasparri, papal secretary of state, representing Pope Pius XI, ratifications of the treaties signed at the Lateran Palace on February 11th. By that simple act, the sovereign independent state of Vatican City came into existence. A few minutes later, Swiss guards, resplendent in multicolored uniforms and bearing rifles with fixed bayonets, marched out of the apostolic palace in which they have been confined in the past and took possession of the territory ceded by Italy. They mounted guard at its frontier. At the same time, the historic bronze door leading into the Vatican Palace, one side of which has been closed since 1870 as a sign of mourning for the loss of the Pope's temporal power, was thrown completely open again, amid cheers from both inside and outside the Vatican, to signify that peace had been re-established between the Church and Italy. While the exchange of ratifications was in progress, the Pope inaugurated the telegraph office of Vatican City, entrusting manager Pizzardo, substitute Secretary of State, to dispatch the first telegram ever sent through that office. The telegram, which was written in the Pope's own handwriting, was addressed to the King of Italy, and it expressed the pontiff's satisfaction at the ratification of the Lateran Treaties. It imparted the apostolic benediction to the King and Queen of Italy, the Italian people, and to the whole world. The telegram ended by imparting an apostolic benediction also to the Premier. Before being dispatched, the message was read by Cardinal Gasparri to the Italian delegation, who appeared to appreciate it very much, especially Signor Mussolini, who asked the Cardinal to convey his personal thanks to the pontiff. Despite efforts made to keep the exact time of the exchange of the ratifications secret, a good-sized crowd had gathered in St. Peter's Square this morning and warmly applauded when the Italian delegation drove past in closed motor cars at 10:45. Premier Mussolini was seated in the first car with Undersecretary Giunta. He was followed in another car by Minister of Finance Mosconi, while Minister of Justice Rocco was in a third car. They all wore their full-dress diplomatic uniforms with the characteristic three-cornered plumed hats. Signor Mussolini wore the collar of the Annunziata, which makes him rank as a cousin of the king, as well as the broad sash of the Mauritian Order and the insignia of the Sovereign Order of Malta. The rear was brought up by two more automobiles bearing the secretaries. The Italian delegation entered the Vatican under the gate of the Mint and through the courtyard of the Parrot. They were saluted at both these places by a Swiss guard, and they arrived finally in the courtyard of St. Damascus, where a whole platoon of Swiss guards were drawn up as a military honor. The Italian delegation was greeted here by manager Pizzardo and Francisco Pacelli, Vatican lawyer, who negotiated the Italo-Vatican treaties for the Vatican. Preceded by two Swiss guards and four bucellanti, quaintly dressed in crimson damask, they proceeded up the spacious marble staircase, and on every landing a Swiss guard stood with presented arms. At the entrance of Cardinal Gasparri's apartment, they were greeted by manager Borgoncini Duca, secretary of the Congregation of Extraordinary Ecclesiastical Affairs, Prince Massimo, the Vatican Postmaster General, Prince Aldobrandini, assistant at the pontifical throne, and other high Vatican officials. Together they passed through the various large halls composing Cardinal Gasparri's suite till they reached the Hall of Congregations, where the Cardinal himself awaited them. Cardinal Gasparri advanced to the door to greet Premier Mussolini and the other members of the Italian delegation. Then everyone left the room except the Italian delegation, composed of Premier Mussolini, Signor Rocco, and Signor Giunta, and the Vatican delegation, composed of Cardinal Gasparri, Monsignor Borgoncini Duca, Monsignor Pizzardo, and Monsignor Pacelli. After Cardinal Gasparri had taken his place at the head of the large table, occupying the center of the room, and the two delegations had disposed themselves at its sides, the actual ceremony took place, the Cardinal and Premier handing each other the original texts of the Lateran Treaties, which had been signed respectively by the Pope and the King. The Vatican text was enclosed in a red velvet case with damasked edges and bearing the papal coat of arms. The Italian text was contained in a white Morocco leather case bearing the Italian royal arms. The Cardinal and the Premier then signed a document drawn up in duplicate, the original testifying that the exchange of ratifications had occurred. The document contained, among others, the following phrase: "The high contracting parties at the moment of exchange of the ratifications of the Lateran Treaties again affirm their desire loyally to observe in letter and spirit not only the Treaty of Conciliation in its irrevocable reciprocal recognition of sovereignties and in its definite elimination of the Roman question, but also are concerned at its lofty aims tending to regulate the condition of religion and the Church in Italy." Then Signor Mosconi signed a check for 750 million lire, about $39 million, on the Bank of Italy, payable to Cardinal Gasparri, and handed him a leather case containing certificates of the Italian 5% state loan of a nominal value of 1 billion lire. Finally, Cardinal Gasparri read the telegram sent by the Pope to the King, and the Cardinal and Signor Mussolini then retired into the former's private study, where they remained together for a quarter of an hour. The Italian delegation left the Vatican with the same pomp and ceremony with which it was received. The whole affair took only 3/4 of an hour, as 45 minutes after entering the Vatican, Signor Mussolini was again being enthusiastically cheered on his way back by the crowd in St. Peter's Square. Soon afterwards, 12 Swiss guards took up their station at a wooden barrier built across the arch, connecting St. Peter's Basilica with the sacristy and marking the boundaries of Vatican City. They stood stiffly at attention, with presented arms, and rendered military honors when the Italian Carabiniers, who had been on guard up to the last minute in the territory ceded to the Vatican, marched past them off the ground they are destined never to enter again. The noon gun was booming when the commander of the Swiss Guard threw open the bronze door, while a detachment of the Swiss Guard presented arms. This act, which was a symbol of the cessation of friction between church and state, caused loud applause both inside the Vatican and outside in St. Peter's Square. Church bells throughout Rome proclaimed the end of discord between church and state. Later, the crowd improvised a demonstration outside the Pope's windows, hoping the pontiff would bless them, but in this they were disappointed, for all of the windows of the Vatican remained closed. King Victor Emmanuel answered the Pope's telegram with the following: "I am moved by the cordial telegram sent to me by Your Holiness on the occasion of the exchange of ratifications of the Lateran Treaties. I share Your Holiness's hope and raise a prayer to God that with today's act we may have a beginning of a new happy era in the relations between church and state. With Her Majesty the Queen and my royal family, I thank Your Holiness for the blessing imparted to us. This, of course, is the first time the Pope and King of Italy have had any communication or contact, even by correspondence. Announcement of the government of the Vatican City State in its new form followed on the heels of ratification. Official announcement was made that Monsignor Borgoncini Duca has been named first Papal Nuncio to Italy and will be made a titular archbishop. Professor Francesco Pacelli was named General Counselor to the Vatican City. Cardinal Serafini was confirmed in the governorship, with Bernardino Nogara as treasurer and Camillo Beccari as secretary general to the governor. Magister Pizzardo replaces Minger Borgoncini Duca as Secretary of the Congregation of Extraordinary Ecclesiastical Affairs, and his place is taken by Mamjunger Ottaviani as Under-Secretary of State. There were several other changes in offices in conformance with these. Following the exchange of ratifications, Pope Pius did not seem unusually moved. He took his customary walk for an hour in the Vatican gardens, and then returned to his desk in his private library to expedite current affairs of a routine nature. What he will do with his newfound freedom is still a matter of conjecture, since the pontiff is keeping his own counsel. Public rumor has had it that his first exit from the Vatican may occur on June 13th, 16th, or 24th, any one of which dates in the Catholic calendar would provide an occasion. Also, the date on which he will receive the Italian royal family has not been fixed, but from the tone of today's telegrams, the meeting is likely to be in the spirit with which Abraham Lincoln referred to the Confederate States. I shall treat them as if they had never been away. There has been a tacit understanding that the Pope would visit the Monte Cassino Abbey some time this summer, and his native diocese of Milan has clamored for a visit from him.